Area 51 is the most talked about secret military base in the world. Well, maybe not so secret anymore, but my guest today has an amazing story to share. A close encounter at Area 51. You'll want to stay tuned to this one. Join me and Jordan Maxwell on Let's Talk Paranormal next. Welcome to this week's show. Now, if you've ever been out and about in Area 51, you know that there's nothing there. It's just a desolate area with a very secret base called Area 51 that the government say doesn't exist. Well, my guest today, Jordan Maxwell, along with a couple of friends, made a trip to the outskirts of Area 51 and had the surprise of their life, an experience that they will never ever forget. Welcome, Jordan Maxwell.
Well, thank you very much, Tracy, for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. Jordan, before you tell us your story, why did you make that trip to Area 51 in the first place?
Well, I was told, part of the story is I was told a year and a half before the incident that it was going to happen. I was in Palmdale, right up here in Palmdale. And I was going to be a best friend at my friend's wedding, a best man at my friend's wedding. And the girl went out to the market and she came back and there was an old man following her in the car. And he got out and came in and we said, "Who is this?" And she said, "I met him in the market and he said he needed to talk to the best man at my wedding." And she said, "Then how do you know I'm having a wedding?" He said, "I know, but I need to talk to the best man of your wedding." So I said, "Well, here I am." And he says, "Well, I have a message for you. You're going to be contacted in a UFO incident, and it's going to be an extraordinary experience for you." And he says, "I'm to tell you that it will be a year and a half from now, and it will be way out in a desert." And I said, "Well, Carlos, my friend, and I usually go up to Palmdale and Lancaster and at night looking for UFOs." And he said, no, this will not be in California. It will be east of California, and it's going to be way out in a desert. Mm-hmm. And there will be a woman in the front seat with you, and a man will be in the back seat with you, and you will be driving, and the three of you will have this experience together. But the woman and the man are there only as witnesses to see what's going to happen. And he said, "But it's the event is for you. But they will be in your car, you'll be driving." And he said, "They'll pick the time and the place. They'll pick the time and the place. A year and a half from now." Well, a year and a half later, I happened to be speaking at a conference over in Mesquite, Nevada. This was in '94, December, the first weekend of December '94. And I'm driving back, and in the front seat is Ivy, my friend from Hawaii, and my publisher, Paul Tice, is sitting in the back seat. Woman in the front and the man in the back.
Right.
And we were coming back from Mesquite, and just as we were getting into Las Vegas, I said to them, I said, "Have either one of you ever been up to Area 51? No. I said, "I haven't either, but I've been invited to come up there. Joe and Pat have called me. I've never met them, but they know me from my radio shows." I said, "You want to go?" "Yeah, let's do." So we turned around and we called them on the cell phone and told them that we were coming up, and Pat said, "Absolutely, come up as our guest." So we're going up for the first time, and that night when we got there, it's 135 miles north of Las Vegas, 135 miles north. That's way out in the desert.
Yes, it is.
So we get there, we have dinner with everyone, we're sitting at the Little Alien chit-chatting, and about 11 o'clock at night when they're closing, I said to Joe and Pat, the owners of the motel and restaurant. I said, where do we go for seeing UFOs?
As you do, as
And
you
Joe
would.
says to me, it was funny, Joe says, you don't have to go anywhere. Just go out in the parking lot. They'll find you. If they want you to see them, they'll find you. Just sit out there and wait. And I said, well, where did the tourists go? So Pat says, all right, go back on the highway right here and go exactly 20 miles south. Go back toward Las Vegas, south 20 miles. And at the 20-mile mark, watch on your speedometer, because there'll be a big mailbox, and that's the famous the Area 51 mailbox
Right.
by the side of the road, and just sit there and see what you see. So I'm driving out. I got Ivy in the front seat, Paul in the back. It's about 11:30 at night. And as I pulled out into the highway, I took a left instead of a right. And Ivy didn't notice it. Paul didn't notice it. I didn't even notice it. We're driving north instead of south. So when we get almost at the 20-mile mark, we start slowing down, and we're looking for the mailbox. And then Ivy says, wait a minute. She said to go south. We've gone north. So I said, okay, why don't we just turn around, go back, we'll spend the night, and go back out tomorrow night. Okay, so now we're 155 miles north of Las Vegas.
Oh my goodness.
It was extremely overcast, couldn't see anything. And so we stopped the car, and right where the car pulled to a stop, I was going to turn around, there's a road leading off into the desert that was a well-kept level road. And Ivy and Paul said, let's go out in the desert. Let's drive out there. I said, you're in the desert.
Now, Jordan, at this point, did it come to your mind about what you'd been told?
No.
No.
But I had told them, when we first were in Las Vegas turning around, I told them that, about the prophecy. I said, I was told that I'd be out in the desert east of California with the woman in the front seat and a man. I said, who knows? Let's go up and see what happens. And so when we get out there, I stopped the car 20 miles north of Ailey Inn, of a little town called Rachel. And I don't know if you've ever been in a desert when it's totally overcast. That is what dark is.
Right.
When you
No,
shut
I
off the
haven't.
lights, there is no light, period.
It's as black can be.
Totally. So we so we pulled out into the desert. I didn't want to go out there, but they were insistent. So I drove out into the desert, and I went about 4 or 5 blocks, and all of a sudden I felt very, very fearful that I had done something wrong, and what came over me. It was a very strange feeling. You've done something wrong. You better stop here. And I stopped the car and I said, Ivy, Paul, I'm getting out of here. I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling something. I backed the car up quickly, and Paul and Ivy insisted that I stop for a moment and get out. And I said, you're not going to see anything. It's totally overcast. I don't feel good about this. I want to get back on the road. And Paul and Ivy were so insistent, just a few moments. Get out for a couple of minutes. Okay. So I shut the engine off, turned the lights off. We got out, and we couldn't have been out of the car maybe 30 seconds. And it was totally black, and in a totally black environment, any light whatsoever you see immediately. Just north of us, the cloud began to open up. It just kind of broke open. You could see the stars. And Ivy and Paul said, wow, look at that. The clouds are opening up. And just as they said that, we're only out of the car less than a minute. The clouds opened up, 2 bluish-white disc-shaped things, making no sound whatsoever. 2 bluish-white saucer-shaped things appearing about the size that the moon appears in the sky.
Wow.
That large. It's not a little light now. We're talking of the size of the moon that appears in the sky.
Now, how far from Area 51 were you at this point, Jordan?
About 20 miles
About
north.
20 miles.
20 miles north. It's called Railroad Junction.
Railroad
That's
Junction.
where the action is. Everyone says, well, there's just no action going on at Area 51 at the mailbox anymore. I said, no, it's 40 miles north of here, because it's 20 miles from the mailbox to the Little Ailey Inn, and 20 miles north of that to Railroad Junction, and that's where the action is.
Wow.
40 miles away in the north is where it's all happening now.
Okay. Railroad Junction, folks. That's where you've got to head.
Yeah, go with me.
Yeah, let's go with Jordan.
So I parked the car, we're standing out, and as I said, the cloud opened up a little bit north of us, and two bluish-white discs came through very slowly. And as they came through the cloud, they floated. They weren't zipping by, they just floated in, and you could see the light reflecting on the cloud above them as they came in. And we were knocked out. Incredibly beautiful, bluish, white, glowing, saucer-shaped things making no sound whatsoever.
Fantastic.
5 more came in behind them.
Wow.
They broke through the clouds, 5 of them. Now there's 7. And they each one about the size that the moon appears in the sky. We're not talking about a little light. We're talking about the size the moon appears.
That's big. Pretty
7
big.
of them. 7. And they are right over our heads, and they stop, they back up, they begin to move, and then they begin to change places.
Wow.
And they're playing with us.
So at this point, you needed a bathroom, right?
Oh, I was scared to death. The Ivy was jumping around like she was seeing Santa Claus for the first time. Paul loved it. He was shouting, "Oh, aren't they beautiful? Look at them." And I was legitimately frightened because I knew this represented a technology. I was born and raised in a Navy town.
Right.
The second largest naval air station in the world was my hometown. I have family that was in the military, so I know jets and planes and all the top stuff. This I have never seen.
Had you seen UFOs before?
Oh yeah, I've seen little things, but not
this
the
was
big
major.
show. This was right in your face. 7 bluish white discs hovering above you, and I panicked. I don't mind admitting it. I became totally frightened. And I always say to people, wait till it happens to you and let's see how you're going to react.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
When you're confronted with a profound event and it's no sound and the spirit of the thing was, you know, this represents something frightening.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this. I'm out of here.
And you can't prepare for something like that.
No.
It was just out of the blue.
And I'll tell you, the feeling was very pronounced in me. I felt as though I was in the presence of a very powerful force.
Really?
A very powerful force that you have come face to face with. And believe me, I back down quick. You know, if it's even with me, I'll play with it.
You knew your place.
No. I backed down. I went out of this. No, thank you. And I was legitimately frightened. And I said, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting in the car. I'm leaving now. And Paul and Ivy didn't want to leave. They were enjoying it. So I got in the car, started the engine, and I yelled at them. I said, either get in the car now or you're walking back. So they got in the car. They were reluctant. They rolled the windows down. I started to take off in the dark because I thought, there's 2 sides of your brain. I thought if I go off, because I know it's a straight line to the highway, and if I go in the dark, no one's going to see me. But the other side of my brain says, they already know you're here. With that kind of technology. So I just figured, I flipped on the lights, put my foot to the floor, and took off. When I did, we're about 5-6 blocks from the highway, Paul and Ivy went totally ballistic on me. They started screaming, and she was screaming like she was truly, totally berserk. She was screaming and crying and yelling, and Paul was, I'm already frightened, but now to have a woman next to me that's totally ballistic, now I'm really scared, because I don't know what this woman is yelling at, but I don't want to know. And so I kept yelling at them to shut up because I don't want to overshoot the highway, and I'm speeding toward the highway. I hit my brakes, slowed down quickly, and opened the door just quick enough just so I could see what they're yelling at. They're right over our heads. Now they're huge, bluish white discs. No sound, moving all around us. And I thought, my God, I don't know what we have done here. But
well, Jordan, where do you think they came from? Were they from Area 51, or did they just happen to be in the neighborhood?
Who knows? All I know is what I saw.
Wow.
7 huge, bluish, white, glowing, disc-shaped things. I thought the first time I saw them, the moment I saw them, they looked like a hologram. But holograms are not able to come through a cloud and reflect light from themselves onto the cloud above.
That's right, yeah.
And so there had to have been something there, but the fact that they made no sound whatsoever and were radiating, that's the only thought, that's the only way I could express it. It was radiating of fear. off of them,
Right.
as if it were a very powerful presence. And translated to humans, it's a fearful presence that you're in the that you're in close proximity to something awesome,
Sure.
and you back off.
Sure, I can understand that.
And it was scary. It truly was frightening. And well, we were speeding out to the highway, and I didn't want to overshoot the highway, but I was screaming at Ivy to shut up because I can hardly keep my mind on what I'm doing now with her yelling at me. And when we hit the highway, we stopped and we all three jumped out because for some reason we felt safer on the highway.
Right.
So we stopped on the highway, we jumped out quickly, and we saw them going back out into the desert, all seven, and it went, they're
Just
gone.
disappeared.
And we stood out there for a few minutes, and every emotion that can go through your body. She was both crying, laughing, Paul was shaking, he thought it was funny, he thought it was terrible, I was frightened. So all the emotions were finally coming out of what we had just encountered.
Had they seen UFOs before? Or was this the first time?
Oh yes, but not like this.
Not like this.
Paul and Ivy both have seen UFOs on occasions, but I keep going back to the fact that this guy told me, a year and a half from now, you're going to be in the desert with a lady in the front seat, a man in the back seat, and you're going to have this experience, and it's for you.
So what do you think the meaning of that is?
Well, there's more to the story, which I am not going to tell you.
Oh,
Because,
no.
no, it got even worse.
You
Or
really?
more interesting, I guess I should say. It got even more interesting. When we went back to, and I'll just tell you this a little bit. When we went back to the motel, which is actually a bunch of little mobile homes set up at the little Alien restaurant, they got a little bunch of mobile homes, they rent out rooms. That night we were visited in our bedroom.
Were you really?
Oh yes. And I slept through it. But Ivy and Paul, the next morning when I woke up, Paul and Ivy were over in the restaurant, and they had a bunch of people sitting around the table, and they're talking, and so I'm assuming they're telling everybody about what happened to us, you know, out in the desert.
Yeah.
No. When I sat down, they're telling everyone what happened to them in the motel,
Right.
in the room.
Right.
We were visited.
By?
And, well, I don't know by, but Paul told, and Paul, you'll have to have Paul on your show and let him tell you what he
Right.
saw.
Right, okay.
And so consequently, that went on. That wasn't the only, only problem with it. It followed us back to Los Angeles. The situation followed me back to San Diego.
Really?
Yeah.
How long did the experience, if you like, last for?
It couldn't have been more than, I would say, a minute and a half, because I don't think I stood there 30 seconds. I think 30 seconds, as much as I can recall, I had enough in 30 seconds. If you are in the presence of some large, powerful creature, like, for instance, a dinosaur, you don't
Right.
need a couple of hours
To
to
think
become
about it.
frightened. Just see it.
It's
That's
automatic.
it. That's automatic. You
Yeah,
don't need
it's
to stay
automatic.
here and watch it for a while
Right.
before you become fearful. Well, I didn't need a lot of time to anticipate what this meant. This was frightening to me. I had never seen anything like this. What they were able to do, the maneuvering.
Maneuvering,
They
yeah.
would come into a circle instantly in a flash. It would go into a circle,
How
7,
amazing.
and then blow out into 7 points like a 7-pointed star. Then come back in circle, shoot out to a star, and come back in quickly.
Wow.
Nobody does that. The technology in the earth, we don't have that kind of technology. I am sure they were trying to tell us and show us, look what we do. Can you do that?
Exactly. Did you have any telepathic communication from them?
No, no.
So you don't know
but
who
the
they
only
were?
thing I got was a fearful, frightening feeling.
Really?
I was totally frightened.
Was that just frightened because of what you were experiencing, or was it because
No.
you felt they were malevolent, perhaps?
Well, I didn't feel that they were meant us harm.
Right.
What I'm trying to tell you is the fear that I felt was I was in the presence of something otherworldly and very, very powerful. That's what I felt. This is not of this world. It is not from this planet, and it reeks of power, majestic power. and I'm frightened of that kind of power.
Now, when you had that experience, Jordan, were you, you know, people tell you that their phones are tapped or they're followed.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you experience anything like that?
I have, but that's been my life for many, many years. I have. This is not the first time I've had an other world experience, so to speak.
Right.
You know, since I was 8 years old, I was born and raised in Gulf Breeze, Florida. So Gulf Breeze is world
That's a
famous.
hot
for-
spot.
Yeah, well, that's
a hot
where I
spot.
was born and raised, in that area.
Right.
And so I always had other world experiences, and so I have a fear of the spirit world. I'm actually legitimately frightened of the spirit world. A lot of people aren't. I have enough fear for everyone because I don't know what that represents,
Yeah.
but I know what I have seen it do, and it's frightening. So when I hear about things happening in Haiti and this voodoo and all the occult stuff going on, I've made a life of researching this kind of thing, and it's very, very legitimate, very real, and very frightening. There are dynamics involved in the other world, spirit world, that most people are not aware of. And
Right.
when you come face to face with something, for lack of a better term, from another world, from another place, and it reeks with power and fearful power.
Now, do you think our governments know what's going on?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind they know. Our governments are many things, but stupid isn't one of them. Anything that's happening, they know.
Oops.
Better believe it.
Right. So,
Now, I'm of the opinion, just my opinion, I'm totally sure our government and others around the world who are on the cutting edge of the sciences have already been, I don't know how you would say this, already, they're not only knowledgeable that they're here, I'm sure they're working with them. There's no doubt in my mind about that for me. I wouldn't be able to go into a court and prove it. I don't need to. I've seen too much. I've talked to too many people. I've heard too much. Most people kind of in the back of their mind know there's something going on, but it doesn't have anything to do with football or basketball or paying my rent, so I don't want to fool with it. It's not important.
yeah.
But
because-
everybody kind of feels there's something going on.
Yeah, because most people live in a box and they don't want to come out the box.
No doubt about it.
They open the lid every so now and again and just peep outside and they close it.
Yep.
Do you
Not
think
me.
the governments are going to let us know at some point?
I think, I'll tell you what, again, it's just my opinion. Norio Hayakawa is a very good friend of mine. He's rather famous in the speaking circuit. And he's always talking about how he believes that the government is going to stage some kind of a UFO landing, is going to frighten everybody, and all the nations will come together and collectively come together as a trick.
Like a War of the Worlds?
Yeah, like War of the Worlds,
Right.
and it's all going to be a trick, he thinks.
Right.
It's all going to be planned. And I thought, well, wait a minute, if you're going to get there's a lot of intelligent people in this world, and governments are not stupid. So if you're going to pull off something like that, it better look good. Because it's going to be
Absolutely.
right. It better look good and very
Absolutely.
realistic. I have then said, I can look at the same facts that he's stating and come up with a different conclusion. I'm of the opinion that very well possibly there's going to be an alien invasion. And the government knows it.
Right.
And consequently, they are trying to prepare the people so that they don't react. Because that was, as far as I'm concerned, that was a CIA operation when Orson Welles, back in the late 30s, 38, 39, did that War of the Worlds thing on radio. I'm sure the CIA was involved in that. And they wanted to see how the people will react if the people really thought that there was an alien invasion from another world. It was called War of the Worlds
Right.
with Orson Welles, and people went berserk. Well, I don't think they're going to go berserk today. I think too many people in this world have already had experiences. They know something's up. But again, I would say I'm thinking that there very well might be a legitimate invasion soon.
I think if the government were to release the information in a slow but sure way, we could deal with it. We could
They've
handle
been
it.
doing that. What do you think Hollywood's been doing since the late 50s? The crash in Roswell was in 1948. And right after that, 49 and 50 is when all the sci-fi movies started coming on. It came from outer space and the aliens and all of that. Is that by chance? I mean, think about it. An industry as huge as Hollywood, turning its gigantic motors toward the sci-fi with such luminaries as George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and all the big guys. They're all moving in on that. Why? Why is Hollywood moving in on that whole thing since 1950? I'm totally convinced in my mind it's because they've been told. You have a certain amount of time. That's what happens in the military. In any war, when the Russians were coming into a city, or the Germans, they would send out people as emissaries and tell the people in the town we're coming. Now, if you're for us, just open your door and we will not harm you. If you're going to fight us, get ready. We're coming.
Right, right.
So I think that this is probably what's going on, is that and it's just my idea, but if there is going to be some kind of an invasion, maybe they are allowing the humans to prepare. Go to the leaders and say, prepare your people, because we're coming whether you like it or not.
Can you really prepare, though?
Well, I think they've done a marvelous job, because people all over the world stand in line to pay money to go see aliens now.
That's true.
And no matter how grotesque and like Alien, the movie, that's a pretty trippy stuff. People love it. They want to go see more.
They do. Jordan, sadly, we've run out of time.
We haven't even started.
We haven't even started. I thank you, sir,
It's a
for
pleasure.
coming by. Please come and see us again.
We will, for sure.
Check out Jordan on my website. Jordan's information is on there. He's had an incredible experience, and you can read more about that on my website. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies. Bye-bye for now.